It's H&S time. We're happy and surprised to be talking Nuggets with you on a Friday. This is Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. Appreciate you guys being with us. If you want to join the show, the best way is to go ahead and subscribe and sign up for notifications on the old YouTubes. You can join folks like Kyle and Damian and Marjan, and Josh is back with us today, and Carlos is back with us today, and Big Honey's back with us today. Kelvin's back with us today. So many folks hanging out with us here on Locked On Nuggets on a Friday. Glad to have you guys with us. On today's show, we will talk about the Nuggets pets heads falling off as the COVID wave continues to cycle through the team. We'll talk about the impact of losing both Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic for the games over the weekend. We'll get you the latest on what we kind of expect from when those guys will be back to the best extent that we know. We'll talk about the loss to the Knicks and how frustrating that was, as well as I have some, I think, surprising takes on that game. And
oh god.
You're gonna think I'm dumb. They're not critical.
Am I gonna be driven crazy?
No, you're just gonna like roll your high. You're gonna do the and shake your head thing at me. That's all. That's gonna happen. They're mostly pretty nice, actually.
Oh god, I'm so ready for you to have hated Zeke Naji.
Nope. And we'll talk more about that when we come back in the later segments of the show. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, joined by Adam Mares from DNVR. You can check him out on Twitter at Adam_Mares. I'm at HP Basketball on Twitter for as long as it's around. So let's go ahead and get into it. So Jamal Murray enters health and safety protocols on Thursday. And so he's now out for the game on Friday versus Dallas. So no Nikola Jokic, no Jamal Murray. Aaron Gordon is questionable with a non-COVID illness, as I'm sure the Nuggets are just waiting for him to eventually pop positive, but maybe he never will. Maybe he really does just have an entirely separate illness. Bones Highland did return in the Knicks game. So Adam, I guess like the starting point here is like what, to me, the weekend's games versus Dallas just become an entirely like, this happens sometimes. You just don't have the guys, and you just kind of gotta like live with that and understand that those are the breaks and the ramifications happen. I don't see any way that I think that they can win some games without Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. I don't expect them to win either game versus Dallas without those two.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful that Nikola's back by the Detroit game. That you missed these Dallas games. There's even a chance that he could be back for the second Dallas game, although we'll see. We don't really know. It's sort of it's weird to say because it is a science, but it's not a science as to how long they're going to be gone. They have to test in, and I think everybody's body reacts a little bit differently. But I think par for the course would be returning to the Detroit game. But yes, no Jamal Murray, no Nikola Jokic. We don't know about Aaron Gordon just yet. And we don't know if anybody else will pop in. I mean, you know how these things work, Matt. These guys are in close contact with each other a lot, especially as they've been on the road. So it's entirely possible that another name pops up between now and, say, tonight or Sunday. So, yes, these are acts of God. I'm curious to see if this is going to be a storyline all year or not. But unfortunately for Denver, they're hitting it right now, and they're just going to have to go through it.
So let's see. Starting lineup, if AG misses, will be Bones, KCP.
I wonder if Ish is back. If Ish Smith is back, do you start him? Malone did this in the preseason where it's like, we want to keep Bones on the bench with the bench guys. We'll try to – where can we have continuity? Although
maybe
Ish
I'd be a little surprised just because like bringing Ish back from his first game back off an injury and throwing him into the starting unit seems
cruel and unusual.
So probably not, but it's possible. But let's say it's Bones, KCP, MPJ, Jeff Green, DeAndre Jordan. That team in like 2000. That team in like 2013 is really good. That's a really good team in 2013. They're gonna get waxed. Like That look, there's always letdown spots, and Dallas I think is more prone to it. Bear in mind that Dallas is at I know this from the betting stuff is Dallas is at a really hard time winning by margin versus anyone. They just play close games. They get big lead. I know that you're like, well, okay,
no. I'm not. I mean,
but
that's basketball too. I mean,
yeah, it is basketball, and it's not in that there are certain teams that don't fit that profile, and the Mavericks have been more so than most teams in that regard. In that, let me put it this way: you get a 25-point lead on the Clippers, and that game, the Clippers make the run in the third quarter. Usually, what happens then is the Clippers run out of gas, and you're able to extend it. And instead, the Mavericks wind up winning by I think 1. So, that's a good example of this where when that other team makes the run and exhausts all that energy trying to get back into the game, Dallas isn't able to then counterpunch.
Yeah.
And so you're 1 run away from making it a ball game. I just don't know that you can get the win, which is what really matters here. You might be able to lose within single digits based off of a letdown spot, but I don't see any way that you can get the win.
I also think that a lot of NBA basketball, the margins between the great players and great teams reveals itself in the fourth quarter. And we'll get to this, I know, in the next game, but you saw Denver, they didn't look like their old self without Nikola on Wednesday night, but they didn't look like an incompetent team. You look at it and you go, okay, they can score, they can do some things. And then you get into crunch time and it's like, oh God, this is where you separate, this is where you really notice things. And so the thing I'm curious about, though, tonight, Matt, is, and I didn't think about this till you were talking because you were mentioning DeAndre in the starting lineup. Luka, he pick and roll hunts, he mismatch hunts. DeAndre plays the deepest drop I've ever seen in my life. Is this a game where DeAndre actually might not be the right answer? Is this a weird? Denver might not. I'm not going to say they're going to punt on this game. They're going to try, but are they more inclined to say, let's throw a Jeff Green at 5, let's throw a Zeke Naji, a Vlatko Čančar at 5? And just switch everything and try to play that route?
Boy, are you going to hate the second segment. Boy, are you going to hate the second segment.
I mean, is this a pro DeAndre take, though, or an anti-Zeke take on it?
It's a pro DeAndre. I actually thought Zeke was fine. I thought Zeke was fine once he settled down in that game. And so I actually look, I wouldn't mind them starting Zeke in this spot from the perspective of, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start Zeke, and we're just going to play switch. That's what we're going to do. We're switching everything, okay? And if Luka wants to hunt Zeke Naji, then he can hunt Zeke Naji. He's probably going to try and then run the guard pick and roll to get Bones onto him, right? That's probably the move. But maybe there is when you okay, if he tries the guard, that's when we blitz. Everything else, we're just going to switch. I would trust Zeke in switch coverage versus Luka. I would.
He'll get eaten up, but it's maybe the best bad option or something.
You make him work. You make him work, and you limit the threes. That to me is a pretty good. That to me is a good strategy. Is Luka can score 40. You need to keep him under 10 assists. That's what you need to do. Yeah. Is you need to make sure that he's not getting the 40 points and kicking out to the shooters. That is their offense. Period and dot.
Right.
That's all they got. They have a few lobs, and I think on the injury report, I believe they got some of the bigs are out. I think that's the case. JaVale's probable.
Yeah. Oh, I thought he's probable
because he's not ready to probable.
Oh, okay.
But he's been benched, by the way. It's crazy. Who would ever add JaVale McGee and then not play him? Maxi Kleber's back. He's out. So Kleber's out. So they'll get stuff with Dwight Powell. That's your concern is Dwight Powell on the rim threat. But if you switch everything, that negates that. So I kind of think that's the best option is to go Zeke at 5, Jeff at 4, and switch all. At least for some stretch of this game versus Luka, they should try that. Look, one of the positives, the very few positives of the situation is this isn't a pure experimentation game. We talked about this in the last episode about what you can learn. This went from okay, you can learn things about your team with Jamal to now it's just we can throw stuff at the wall and let's find out if anything on tape, even if we lose the minutes, let's see what works and what doesn't. Right? That to me is the benefit of the situation is you're not going to win. You're probably not going to win. Your win percentage is very low. You should be able to now.
They're also coming off a loss. They have to kind of relate the ship. Yeah.
But I don't know that Malone's going to look at it that way because he just wants to win. And that's just how he's wired, right? And so like, but I think this is a great opportunity to just experiment. You're going to be fine when Nikola gets back.
Right.
You're going to be fine. You're going to make the playoffs. Like, you are going to be a top 4 seed. You're going to be fine. So take this game and try some different stuff to see what works.
Yeah, and what are the so it's interesting to kind of think about what are some of those things you want to see works. I mean, one is Bones. He's obviously him and Michael Porter are the two best scorers remaining. They need to get a lot of shots up. They'll probably play a lot of minutes together on the court. I'm curious to see if there's anything positive that comes out of that. This is a tough spot to be in because they're both bad defenders, and you're going up against a guy that's very good at finding bad defenders and making them look bad. But nonetheless, maybe there's something to the offensive end of those two guys finding a synergy, getting confidence, or getting opportunity to hunt shots or what have you. So that's part of it. I even wonder, Matt, I don't think this is on the docket. I would love to see a little bit more of Vlatko and Zeke. Those are two guys that I think, based on who's missing, Jokic and Aaron Gordon, you're missing front court players. So opportunity to front court players here. I wouldn't mind seeing those guys, even though I don't think it's going to go great against Luka. But then the last one is, I'm curious if Peyton Watson gets a go tonight.
I was just about to share this from Big Honey, who says, want to see P-Watt out there as well. I want to throw P-Watt out there versus Luka.
That's what I'm saying. Why not? Like, just put it out there and see what happens there. I don't expect anything good, but why not?
No, it's a great learning moment for him to put him out there and be like, this is where you're going to have to get to. Not from you have to be Luka, from your long-term goal is to be able to defend guys like this. Show him how high that bar is. Show him how difficult that is in reality. I can't imagine trying to guard Luka Doncic, right? But show him.
Especially the weight disparity between those two guys. Because as much as I like Peyton Watson, what is the weight difference? 40 pounds?
40 pounds.
That's and it's not just a 40, it's like 40 going on 60 in terms of strength. You're a young, skinny guy versus a more mature, bigger, thicker guy. So that would be like swatting a fly out of the way to score, I think, for Luka. But nonetheless, it's a good experience.
Yeah. Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about the Knicks game, and I'll give my thoughts that are going to drive Adam crazy. We'll get Adam's thoughts as well on the game. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I've got to tell you about several of our great sponsors. I want to tell you about Turo first. Turo is the world's largest car-sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts across the US, UK, Canada, and coming soon to Australia. Forget boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. You can book an SUV or a minivan for a family road trip, a pickup truck, or some errands, or even test drive an EV. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. You can forget boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. Want to tell you a little bit about BetterHelp as well. So look, I'm going to be really honest here. I have done several stints in therapy. I think most everyone should. I think it's really good for your mental health. There's a show that has an episode that talks about therapy, and it talks about how it's not exciting or an adventure. It's just work. It's like brushing your teeth. It's just something that you should do. And what's tough is that life doesn't come with a user manual. So when it's not working for you, it's normal to feel stuck. And navigating any of life's challenges can make you feel unsure, whether it's a career change, a new relationship, or becoming a parent. Therapists are trained to help you figure out the cause of challenging emotions and learn productive coping skills, which makes therapy the closest thing to a guided tour of the complex engine called you. BetterHelp has connected over 3 million people with licensed therapists. It's convenient and accessible anywhere, 100% online. I'm way more comfortable with services like this where I want a little bit of physical distance. I want a little bit of like separation. I want to be able to just like communicate. And that's why these things really work for me, and they work for so many people. As the world's largest therapy service, BetterHelp has matched 3 million people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists, available 100% online. Plus, it's affordable. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist. And if things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist anytime. It couldn't be simpler. No waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless searching for the right therapist. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making this part of your day. Glad to have you guys with us on a Friday. Hope you guys are getting set for the weekend. First winter is here, Adam. First winter has arrived in Colorado. Did you guys get a lot of snow? We got hammered up here in NoCo.
I mean, we got a little bit.
Oh,
we're only like 20 minutes from each other, Matt.
You know what though? Sometimes Denver gets hit and I don't get anything.
That's true.
And sometimes I get nailed and Denver's like fine.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the game. I got 3 takes for you. Do you want to go first or you want me to go first on that game?
Go for it. I mean, yeah.
All right, here's the 3 takes I got.
John Steichen really doesn't like my lighting. I'm very surprised by this.
I think you look awesome. I like the backlight on the guitars. I think
film noir lighting to me. I kind of like it.
Yeah,
little shade.
You're Batman. So 3 takes. Okay, I don't blame MPJ for his performance. DeAndre Jordan was missing in the final quarter. The Nuggets should try and look to trade Jeff Green at the deadline.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's a very not Matt take.
Yep. So those are my 3 takes. Let's start at the top. So here's my thing with MPJ, and I said this yesterday on the fan on Stokely and Zach, that you can't constantly preach at him to not. He just leaves. I try and he's just not even gonna listen to my crazy takes. Welcome back. So.
There, my lighting.
Your lighting's much better. So you can't, on the one hand, preach low mistakes for MPJ and stress being part of the offense and fitting in and trusting the system. And then as soon as the meal ticket has to miss a game, all of a sudden be like, we need you to score 30. When you have not programmed him in self-creation, when you have not built that into the offense for the entire year, you have not dedicated a lot of sets to him, you have not given him ISO opportunities, you have not focused on telling him that that's what you want him to do. You've in fact shied away from that. You can't just be like, all right, now we need you to kick it up and go mellow ISO ball time. You can't do that. And what I saw from MPJ was he misses a couple shots and he gets into the zone of, I better start working to get other guys involved and not try and have a big game so it doesn't look like I'm chucking in the game without Joker. It causes and this is a little bit of armchair psychology. I'm just saying, from the shots that he passed up to the ones that he chose, and the way that he kind of deferred, I did not see a guy that was shying away from the moment. I saw a guy that was worried that he was going to take that moment too far. Your thoughts?
I mean, I don't feel that way. I mean, I've said this a lot, that I just don't think he reads the court well enough. And actually, I got to come to his defense in one way. I think it's underrated how much his athleticism is below what it was the last time we saw him fully healthy, because his shot looks so good and he's not laboring. But his getting to the rim part of his game, finishing above the rim, is noticeably lower than what it was the last time. In fact, not just noticeably, I won't say significantly. I think he has 3 or 4 dunks total this year, where by this point he's usually a 1 dunk per game guy. He's just never getting to the rim and finishing that high. His finishing numbers at the rim are lower than they have been before. So I think that's part of it. I wonder how much of this is, he's playing within himself. I think it's a large part of that. He's trying to play in a team system. And how much of it is, when you don't feel good going to the rim, you just hang around the perimeter. And when you hang around the perimeter, you're an off-ball player more than you are, typically. So I think there's a little bit of both things going on. But I think more than anything, I still just don't think he reads, not fully. There's some other things we should talk about, we'll get to later. But I think there's a lot of scoring opportunities that he's not seeing, that I don't know. I just have a hard time trying to overcorrect to accommodate him.
I see a player that also doesn't have a lot of confidence in his handle now that teams have really picked up that you can attack it. I'd be very curious to see whether or not that's actually on opposing team scouting reports, that his handle's weak and you can attack it. And I think he knows that. He used to be a lot more aggressive and reckless, and the athleticism, I think, is definitely a component, and that's a good point. I think that the handle is another issue. I think the
scout's an interesting thing here, because in the Portland series, which was that the last? That is the last time we saw him healthy. Yep, the Portland series. Norman Powell got into him, right? It was Because if you just try to shadow a guy, he's so tall, he can shoot, he can get around you and do finishes or whatever. Norman Powell just got like chest to chest and was like, I'm not afraid of you dribbling around me if I get all the way up into you, the way I typically would be if I got into KD that way. One dribble, he's around you. And I wonder if there is a little bit of scouting report of, hey, just never give him space ever. Just get into him. He's not going to beat you off the dribble.
So here's the DeAndre thing. I thought Zeke was fine once he settled in, right? Like the first,
he was very bad in the first end. Very bad.
This is part of it. Is like I'm not gonna jump down Zeke's throat to make myself feel better about being skeptical about Zeke's minutes just because like he gets thrust into this position after not playing. That's not fair. Like everybody's got to settle in. Everybody's got to settle in. So I'm not going to jump down his throat. And I thought the second half he was fine.
I thought he was actually good. I thought he actually made, I thought he was really bad in the first one. The first one was like frighteningly bad in my opinion. He was part of this was he's going up against Jericho Sims, who by the way, one of the most athletic dudes I've ever seen. Yeah. My God, that guy's a Terminator. He's so huge. He's so big. And then he jumped those rebounds he was jumping to. Zeke had no chance. Like Zeke was just not in the same athletic tier as him. Yeah. And he was a foot or 2 feet higher on every rebound. It was wild.
Here, I watched the game and then I went back and did clip by clip to see kind of what matched with this first stuff I saw, and then I went along with the game flow to kind of get a deep dive. The Knicks didn't have Mitchell Robinson, and in the first half, when it was Hartenstein especially versus DeAndre Jordan, the idea, you see this a lot, the idea of DeAndre Jordan does a lot more than the reality of DeAndre Jordan. I've done pieces on this before where there are guys in the league that even though they can't shoot, guys guard them as if they can. Marcus Smart used to be this guy. He's improved. But
Dwayne Wade was this guy.
Yeah. It's literally just like, well, I can't leave him open. That guy can shoot. Even though it's like, if I was an assistant coach, I'd be like, he's shooting 25% from 3. Let him fire. It's fine. He can't hit. With DJ, when he rolls, the big is like, I can't just let this guy go. He's 7 feet tall. He's huge. He is a monster of a human being. I have to keep a body on him. And that gravity does a lot for all of the guards. Anybody trying to run pick and roll gets more space because of that. Versus when I saw Bones and Jeff Green or Jamal and Jeff Green trying to use Jeff as a roller, this has been kind of the idea is like if Jeff can be an effective roller, teams do not care if Jeff Green rolls to the basket. They can just guard it easier. Like there's something to be said for just the simple size component. And it's one of the reasons why I think Zeke played pretty well in his stretch was Zeke's got a little bit of he's taller and has more athleticism than Jeff does at this point in his career. And he's got that 3-point ability. The screens still aren't great, but also I will note this, I don't think that there's great pick and roll chemistry in terms of knowing how to get around Zeke or Jeff's screens from the guards. They just don't know how to, when I'm watching it, guards.
I would agree, though. I thought one of the things Vlatko brought was good screening. So, there is a noticeable difference between, DeAndre and Vlatko and what Zeke does. So, I think it's a fair criticism.
DeAndre has missed dunks this year like crazy. He's shooting middies. It's crazy. I agree that he's missed these. My problem is that with any time that you have these type of things is the problem is the bias impact on you as a watcher of that guy missed a dunk is, oh my God, how do you miss that? That's terrible. Versus a guy missing a mid-range jump shot. You're like, oh, he missed the shot. Okay, move on. When the outcome, now the percentage chance is higher. I'm not disregarding that, right? But he missed as a tough layup underneath or whatever. The outcome is largely the same. It's just that you're going to have a heightened reaction to these types of events. And look,
you're missing the best Matt take that you could have had here.
Okay.
Because I thought DeAndre was good too, but who did he outplay in this game? You already said his name. Hartenstein.
Yeah.
Hartenstein looks so bad. He looked like the biggest scrub in the world in this game.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it, how bad he was. Bruce Brown rejected him on a dunk or whatever at the rim.
He had a big
it
game.
was hilarious. So, to me, that's the funniest one is people talk about DeAndre as the worst guy. Me included. I still think, Hartenstein's a good player, but he's having a rough year, and he had a really rough game.
Look, if you swapped out Jeff Green and Vlatko Čančar for Isaiah Hartenstein and Jericho Sims, the Nuggets would be in like a much better.
Is Sims good? I haven't watched him before, man, but that guy was so his motor was incredible. His athleticism was incredible. I don't really know his game.
Yeah. He's yet another of the Knicks players who doesn't play as much because Tibbs is very dedicated to the ideas he has in his head.
The guy was just everywhere, it felt like.
And then finally, here's the Jeff Green component. It's not about how the difference here is if I say that Jeff Green should be traded, if that comes from, 90% of Nuggets online, then that means that it's because, Jeff sucks because he's old. Mine is more that I don't know what he brings to this team that they need in a non-injury situation. And in the injury situations, ultimately, those aren't going to matter because if you don't have one of your, if you're missing guys for the playoff run, you're not getting there anyway. That's how it's built. That's how your roster's built. That's how your salary cap's built. And so to me, they need more rollers and shooters and less of an in-between guy, which is a lot of what Jeff is right now. And he's the only guy I can really find on the roster that can provide an upgrade if you were to deal him.
Yeah, maybe. Look, here's the thing about Jeff Green. When you said, what does he provide? I think there's a number one thing that Malone would say, and that's scoring. In that second unit, they go to him in isolation. The only thing they do more than that is put the ball in Bones' hands and have him try to just create off the dribble and pick and roll or ISO or whatever. But outside of that, their second option, even with Michael Porter on the court, their second option is those Jeff Green mid post-ups. And they go to it, honestly, 1 out of every 4 plays when they're in their second unit. And I wonder, I don't know if they're right to think this or not, but Jeff is a very good one-on-one scorer, especially on the action that they run gets him a switch onto a guard, and then he kind of ISOs with his back to the basket, ISOs attacking a smaller guy, and he's really good at it. I think Malone would look at that and go, we're having such a hard time scoring with that unit anyway, or getting good looks. And that's like a thing I go to 25% of the time and I feel good about. Whether he's right or wrong, I don't know, but that's what Malone would say he provides.
Snail says the Jeff lack of hustle play and rebounds is a killer. Jeff Green is a veteran, so a lot of times times when he gives that effort, and that's why he has these highlight plays bracketed by these times where you're like, he's not even trying. And
I don't think it's his vetness though. I think he's been this way. Wilson Chandler was this way too. Like I've said this before in defense of Wilson Chandler. If you hate him, you say he plays, too relaxed. If you like him, you say he plays smooth. I think Jeff Green's the same way. He kind of plays at a very controlled pace. He doesn't seem to get emotionally invested in games the way that you kind of want a guy to be mad when the other team doesn't run and hyped when he doesn't play with that energy, and he kind of plays at the same speed.
Here's another usually a non-Matt take. I think they'd be better off with just pure what effort guys on the second unit.
Well,
if you're not going to have an identity, you might as well just have like a bunch of really flawed hustle players.
Do you know that's who made the run, Matt, in the game? Yeah. So the team, the reason Denver was actually up and then they ended up blowing it. If you look at this game, Denver had one good stretch where they dominated and got up big, and it's the reason we feel like they blew it. But if you actually go back and watch the game, it was even all the way through the game, and then they had one big run, and then they had one big collapse. But the big run came with Bones, Brown, Vlatko, and Zeke. And that is not a lineup that you can look at and say, oh, it's well-rounded. It has all these things. What it has is Bruce Brown outworks everybody. Christian Brown outworks everybody. Vlatko works hard. And Zeke in that stretch grabbed an offensive rebound and made a bunch of hustle plays, knocked down a 3. So you have guys that are going to hustle. And then, of course, Bones, plays wild, plays with intensity. But that was a lineup that just didn't have discernible skill, but they play so hard. And I think Denver has actually a lack of those lineups and a lack of those guys. You happen to get them all on the court at the same time. You'll have games where they get outscored 10-0, but that was a moment where they actually went on like a 10-0 run or 15-5 run, something like that.
Having 2 rebounds in 28 minutes is unacceptable, though. No. Period and dot no. The Nuggets are 8th in rebound percentage this season. Now, a lot of that comes with Joker and the other guys in the starting unit. Absolutely, totally agree. I'm telling you that I don't find that, if you want to approach that way, you need to, go look up Jeff Green's on-court rebounding percentage for the Nuggets and tell me that that's bad. That the Nuggets are giving up a super high percentage of second chance points in the minutes where Jeff Green plays, or that the bench unit is having a real problem with those. But just looking at, he only had 2 rebounds. Bad way to approach it. It's not the right way to look at it, in my opinion. That's just how I get to.
Somebody said the idea of Bones' creation is better than the reality of it.
Yep.
I don't know, man. There was a stat that somebody put out there earlier today that he's like 4th in the NBA in shot creation per minute, and then like shooting like 6th best percentage on those. Those are individual numbers. I think part of this is that lineup hasn't found the identity yet, and he's in a tight spot. I think if you put Bones, for example, in the starting lineup, Bones's creation would look a lot better. I'm not saying he's a starter player. I'm just saying if you put him in with a primary creator and good floor spacing and all these different things, it'd be good. But that lineup to me, again, doesn't have the identity of, at the moment, it feels like Bones creates something, Jeff ISOs, no plan C, and plan B is not exactly a great plan. So I want to pump the brakes on some of the Bones criticisms earlier, because I just feel like until that unit figures out who and what they're trying to do, I don't want to judge him too harshly.
Yeah, I mean, I think I get back to what we talked about a lot, which is they could really use a center that could badly duplicate Jokic. Is kind of how I've tried to say. It's like I'm just looking for a DHO weapon. Essentially, is all I'm really saying. Like that's really what it gets into. It's not trying to duplicate Jokic because of the shooting, passing, etc. It's more just like a big that can operate at the nail, a big that can operate in the pinch post. It's Kelly Olynyk. Like that's honestly what I'm saying. Is like Kelly Olynyk, like.
Player.
You put Kelly Olynyk into that second unit with Bones, and I, in my opinion, like everything looks a billion times better.
Olynyk is kind of like the, is he in some ways, I know they're different players, but sort of like the best outcome for Zeke?
Boy.
I mean, Zeke's not there, but I'm just saying that's what you would hope he's kind of coming into. He can
by the time that he's like 28, 29, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, thinking he's going to get there this year it would be tough. But somebody was asking, have we talked about the collapse? Should we take a break and then talk about the collapse? Because
we'll talk about the collapse.
We've talked about all the other things, but the end of this game is the actual story.
I thought you were going to say Cody Zeller. I will always support Cody Zeller. Cody Zeller is surprisingly good. And that's what Boogie did. Stop. I'm begging you guys. I
mean, he's not wrong. That is what Boogie did.
But it's never like he's not on an NBA team. No one has been like, wow.
I think Boogie's going to end up on an NBA team.
Probably. Everyone's desperate enough to deal with him for 6 months.
There's a hilarious game of chicken where nobody wants to be go too early, but nobody wants to be too late to the party. They're like, is January too early? Yes. Okay, we got to wait. But what if someone takes them January 15th? Like,
sorry, we'll go to break, but Dylan's been complaining about Malone. There's no cohesiveness of this team. The burden on Jokic is so immense to spoon feed this whole thing. I thought it'd be different this year with the influx of talent, but it's not that different.
Man, you're belittling our audience. It's a weird move.
Sorry, I get frustrated. They're 8-3. Everything's fine. Why are we like what? All right, fair.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree with you. I agree with you. That's that part. Like the funny thing about this Nuggets season is I feel so good about where they are, and they're going
to be fine.
They're getting hit with acts of God right now, which every team goes through. They're going through them a little early, but I actually think this team is really, really good. And by the way, like the Mavs just lost to Houston without Luka. Like I don't think it's a bad thing when your guy is down and you say we have no plan B. Like, yeah, plan A is pretty good though.
Yeah, that's 80% of NBA teams are like that. Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk more about this stuff on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I'm going to tell you about Built Bar. It's back, baby. Built Bar is back. Can we pause the pod for a second? Okay, we're paused. All right, because you got to try this. I'm talking about Built Bar's brand new reimagined flavors, the cookie dough topper, the coconut brownie bar, and the coconut brownie topper. White chocolate peppermint granola. It's Built's take on the granola bar, so it's more filling and still insanely tasty. And candy cane brownie. Holidays are here. Puff. Built Puffs are like biting into the universe's most delicious cloud. First off, for anyone who hasn't tried Built Bars before, they're literally the best tasting protein bars ever built. They're revolutionizing nutrition as we know it with 100% real chocolate, 17 grams of protein, and shockingly low sugar and calories. 130 calories. Just sink your teeth into that first bite and it'll change your life forever. And the magical, wonderful time afterwards. You're probably wondering which new flavor is my favorite? An unanswerable question to say the least. They're all unbelievable and they're all different. So you can order a mix box and try all 5 flavors for yourself. Built. You got to try this. Get 15% off your order right now using the code LOCKEDON15 at Built.com. That's code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off at Built.com. Also need to tell you about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You get all the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer and esports, we've got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those on BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. We're also brought to you today by SweatBlock. It's cold out. It is legit cold out. And when you layer up your inside body, like the internal layer is going to get really hot and there's going to be sweating. And then you take off your hoodie and there are the stains. And that's just mortifying, just absolutely horrified. So to avoid that, just use SweatBlock and you're good for 7 full days. You use it on a Sunday and you're good the rest of the week. If you or someone you love is experiencing embarrassing sweat or dry or order, try SweatBlock. Save 20% with promo code LOCKEDON at sweatblock.com. Also available on Amazon. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making this part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us. Make sure to check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. All the biggest stories in sports delivered right to you from Locked On's panel of experts. Locked On Sports Today. All right, so let's talk about the collapse. I talked a lot in that last segment. Tell me what you think about that collapse that occurred in that fourth quarter.
A lot of things that happened. I mean, primarily for me, it was the offensive end of the floor. And this is going to sound like a weird critique because Murray, he's supposed to assume the mantle of guy when he's out there. I thought the ball got a little sticky with him late in games and he didn't produce. Is it just because he missed shots and I wouldn't think this? Maybe it is like the best thing was for him to kind of take shots. I just thought the ball got a little bit sticky. And then after the game, Michael Malone hinted at, and when I went back and watched those minutes, so again, I'm going to say I thought the ball got sticky with Murray, which is a thing that can happen. But to his defense, there was very poor execution down the stretch of that game that was noticeable when it was happening live. Malone, after the game, referenced it. Bones Highland, after the game, referenced it, that guys were in new positions and didn't know the plays, which to me this is one of the things that drives me nuts, Matt. This absolutely drives me nuts. You take a guy who plays the small forward spot and then you move him to the power forward spot, but you run the same actions that you run every single game, the same stuff you've worked on for years and years and years, and guys are like, where do I go? I don't understand it, Matt. And maybe I'm unsympathetic to this because it's not a thing that like me as a player, as a college player, I know it's hard to compare apples and oranges here because this was a different level of competition 100-fold. But I just have a hard time understanding that weakness of like, man, I'm in a different spot. I don't know what to do now. It drives me nuts. You watch the last play that really mattered, KCP airballs, I think, a shot because he forces one up at the buzzer. The guys clearly didn't understand the play. It was the most important play of the entire game. And guys didn't understand where they were supposed to go, how they were supposed to set a screen window release. And to me, that was the thing that stood out. Some of that's expected when you're missing Jokic. Everybody kind of moves into a different role. But this is the difference between like truly great veteran teams and whatever Denver is at this very moment, where small changes throw you that far out of whack. It's a little wild to me.
Yeah, that's fair. One of the reasons I really talked about DJ was I thought that was part of it is if you put Jamal into a scenario where you're running pick and roll, he has learned and worked really hard on understanding how to use that space and make the right reads. You need separation from the guard containing him with a good, useful screen if you're just going to run Jamal over and over and over again. They couldn't do that. To me, it's hindsight, and that's the life of a coach, and that sucks. But to me, I just don't understand the idea of being like, well, they're going small, so we're going to go small, and we're going to beat them with our own small ball unit. Your small ball unit's not as good. Your small ball unit can't screen. Your small ball unit can't finish at the rim. Your small ball, like, you don't have Julius Randle, right? So why are you taking away?
It was a reactive one. It was Malone even said it after the game. They went small and we wanted to match that. And I don't know that it's the wrong move, by the way. Like, would you have wanted to see DeAndre Jordan guarding Julius Randle at the end of the game? He was on fire. I mean, look, in hindsight, yes, because it didn't work out the way they did it. So might as well try something else. But
if that had failed, I would be here being like, why didn't you go small?
Maybe that's. I mean, maybe it really would have just been that, and they were doomed one way or another. But to be honest with you, New York was good in the fourth, but they weren't great offensively. And Denver fouled more than anything, and they were fouled on plays they didn't need to. Like they fouled The biggest foul was actually the Jeff Green rebound foul that gave New York the lead, where Julius Randle just outmuscled him. Julius Randle, very strong. Jeff Green, not a great rebounder. So maybe that's, kind of not, you can't be too mad about that. But to me, it wasn't like a lack of defense. It was a lack of offense. And then they didn't grab the rebound when they needed to, and they fouled a lot.
I mean, look, Jamal goes 0 of 4 in that stint to close the game. Jeff goes 0 of 1. KCP is 0 of 1 on that final shot there. Bones closes the game and goes 2 of 3. MPJ doesn't take a shot. This gets into the other thing, which is we've talked about this before. It's not a new thing to anybody. There's no chemistry between Jamal and MPJ.
Yeah.
They don't have any chemistry. You're going to have to figure that out. Joker's not always going to be there to be your conduit.
The funniest swing this year, Matt, to me is going from Jokic doesn't pass to Michael Porter or whatever to Jokic is the only one looking to pass for Michael Porter. Like, there's kind of a funny thing here. Maybe there's a commonality here in that there's some limitations to Porter that I think he just has to work on and kind of figure out. And hopefully the coaching staff is working on him. I think Jokic has done a great job of looking for Michael Porter this year. I think Michael Porter's efficiency is in large part because of, the way he's played and settled into that. But games like last one, I do think there's a lack of chemistry between those guys. And I don't think it's on one guy to figure that out. I think it's on all the guys to figure it out.
5555555-ish says, I think we really missed AG that game as well. He could have guarded Randall.
I agree.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. That's honestly
Randall went wild in this game.
You could have played AG at 5, like in that final stretch.
Yep, that's exactly how you would have closed that game. And you're right. I think it would have made a big difference.
Vlada, man, discuss Malone as a coach in the NYC game, please. And then Vlada says,
I think he had a bad game though, man. I don't.
Malone should be a problem at some point. Yeah, I agree. I don't think he had a good game. I agree. I think we kind of look. I think one of the things we've kind of seen is with this roster construction, the way it's built. I think Malone did really pretty well the first couple of years with low expectations when he had a roster where nobody was the star, and he has evolved since then into being a coach that needs the guys that they signed up for. Like they've built a team to contend around the concept of their identity when they have their guys. And so when they don't have their guys, they don't have that identity and they don't know, like there's a little bit of they're lost. If you want to say he should be able to coach them up to win games when 2 starters are out, there are coaches that do that. Eric Spoelstra does that. Nick Nurse to a degree, though it's like with way different personnel. I don't think he coached well. I don't know that like it's, as we always talk about, like it's jumping to conclusions from it off of a year where he's been pretty good. Like if you take the best player off of most of the teams in the NBA, the coaches don't look good.
Yeah, it's so true. I will say one thing real quick, because I see a lot of people saying, put the ball in his hands and see what he can do. I don't think that, maybe I don't have a ton of confidence in it, but I will say I just looked it up because I was wanted to prove him wrong. Michael Porter does not qualify for minutes on isolations, meaning he does not have enough. He has fewer than 10 isolations this season. And then I looked up pick and roll ball handler, also has fewer than 10 possessions. So
yep.
I wanted to say, no, they've done it, but actually they haven't done it. So
now look, I'll say this. I went back and watched the other day some of his pick and roll stuff, and it's awkward,
his handles
clunky, doesn't look right. So I would say that like my thing has been, and I've been consistent on this, in that second unit, I would be force feeding him nail triple threat post ups. And what's funny is, do you know that like they run some of that stuff? They just run it for Jeff.
Oh no, I told you this the other day. The number one play that they run for, they used to run for Michael Porter, they've given to Jeff Green, and he's good at him. He honestly might be better at it than Michael Porter is. But it is unfortunate that it does come directly at the expense. Of Michael Porter.
That's kind of my thought.
He's actually, Michael Porter is averaging 1.07 points per handoff possession, which is really good. And he's getting, quite a few more than Bruce Brown, for example.
All right. So, like, look, we expect them to lose both Mavericks games. Do you think they get blown out, or do you think like one game is surprisingly close and they get blown out in the other?
I think they probably get blown out. It's not just because of Jokic. It's, who knows with Aaron Gordon, who knows with Jamal Murray, who knows with who else is going to miss. They're just so thin, specifically in the front court when you need front court bodies. So I don't think they get a win, but we'll see. I hope we get something interesting though out of these games. Like honestly, like if you're going to have this, I just hope we get something. Peyton Watson, Zeke Naji, Vlatko Chanchar, even Bones Highland, seeing what he does now with a little bit more responsibility and maybe even in some lineups that are a little bit more interesting for him. And then, of course, Michael Porter. I hope Michael Porter had a horrible game without Nikola in the preseason. What was he, like 1 for 9 or something and a half? Then he had a horrible game without him so far. Like, I hope he has a bounce back game for his own confidence. And I will say this, Matt, not that it matters to us. We can overstate these things. Porter seems a little miserable to me. And it's almost sad. Like he's doing so many things right. And still when you see him talk, he just does not look like a happy person. And I hate it.
David says, MPJ has enough clout that if he asks for certain actions, Malone would have to adjust. If his handle is a problem, have him try high pick and rolls where there's more room to work with. I understand the idea. I'm telling you that you go back, if you can, watch the pick and rolls, and you will not feel confident in that. You will not feel like this is a good idea. If you're trying to win a ball game. It's a great idea for practice. Love that idea.
And maybe they have done these things in practice, and that's why we're here where we are. But I will say this. Michael Porter is a better player than what he's done. You've asked him to do a certain role. I think he has done that. He's like fit in those lines. He's shooting a career high in his efficiency, although last game actually weighed it down a lot. Last game weighed him down from 49% to 46% from 3. That's how bad he was. But nonetheless, I actually do agree that I wouldn't mind to see them. I've been saying this for the last 2 weeks. I wouldn't mind to give him one extra play, one extra shot, or one extra action, step outside the lines one time per game, every game until you find that limit. And I haven't seen that yet. And again, it's not on one person. I think it's on Michael Porter. Somebody put it, well, he has to participate in his own recovery. There's a lot of that too. But I do think he's earned the right to give him a look that you don't believe in.
I love this take from Coupon User. MPJ had an awesome slip that generated 3 in the first quarter as roll man. I'd like to see him set more ball screens rather than ball handler. I love that idea.
Yeah. Here's one thing though, Matt. The last play, because as much as I agree with this is the thing that is a trust thing for a team and for a coach. The last play when I was talking about guys not knowing where to be and screwing up, he screwed up in particular because he slipped the screen on Jamal Murray inappropriately. Like he didn't run the action. You're supposed to set the screen. They're going to switch that ball when it's 2 guards or two perimeter players. They switch it, but you have to get high enough on it to switch right as the switch is coming, or slip right as the switch is coming. And he didn't. He kind of just ran a route where they didn't switch because they didn't have to think at all. So yes, I agree, but these are examples of where the details matter, and he doesn't always get them right.
I just feel like there's a more chance for him to get those right than as a ball handler, but we can disagree and find out because we'll see what happens. Let's go wrap it up for Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I will get you a post-game show tomorrow in reaction to the Mavericks game. Come hell or high water. So check that out over the weekend. Then we'll be back on Monday with our usual rotation of episodes. Thanks for joining us. Make sure to hit like and subscribe on the YouTube channel, and we'll see you guys again next time on Locked On Nuggets.